Do you guys mind if I start?
Penny. That's where I sit.
Sit next to me.
No, I sit there.
What's the difference?
What's the difference?
Here we go.
In the winter, that seat is close enough to the radiator to remain warm, and yet not so close as to cause perspiration. In the summer, it's directly in the path of a cross breeze created by opening windows there and there. It faces the television at an angle that is neither direct, thus discouraging conversation, nor so far wide as to create a parallax distortion. I could go on, but I think I've made my point.
Do you want me to move?
Well,
Just sit somewhere else.
fine.
Sheldon, sit.
Here's a little background on Sheldon Cooper. Sheldon is a scientist. He's a very smart man, has a high IQ, and he does have some weird ideas and some weird habits though. Sheldon also has OCD and possible Asperger's syndrome. I say that Sheldon might have Asperger's because he has many of the characteristics of the syndrome. Sheldon is socially awkward. There are many situations where he does not understand sarcasm, and he is in the show he's actually practicing to understand these. He does not get social cues that well either. He's a very weird person. It's very hard for Sheldon to make friends, and when he does make friends, it's hard for them to deal with him, and just because of the way he sees the world and how he views it. Sheldon is very blunt in all of his conversations. He doesn't really have a social filter. You know, if he thinks something, he'll say it, and he won't really care what other people think, how they feel about it. Sheldon will say what Sheldon will say. He has rituals that he always has to follow as well, like a strict schedule. Sheldon has to sit in the same seat all the time, which is the clip that I started off the show with. And he also, every night they have a certain night, and so Mondays, this is just making this up, but Mondays are like Chinese, Tuesdays Italian, and he has to get food from the same restaurant, and he gets the same order every time. And if it's not that way, he'll throw a hissy fit and he'll be really upset, and he has to have it his way. Sheldon is a very good scientist, but he probably also has some OCD. Everything has to be in its place, in its way, doing what he wants. Asperger's affects Sheldon Cooper's life in a few ways, and the first one on the show is very noticeable and it's easy to see, and it's the effect it has between him and his friendships, between his friends. You know, the effects that Asperger's has on Sheldon Cooper's life, even though he doesn't have it according to the producers, he does have a lot of the effects of Asperger's. And some of them are, his friends find him very hard to deal with. He can be a very abrupt person, and he does things his way and his way only. He doesn't like to compromise with anybody. One thing it does help him in is he's one of the top scientists in his field. I believe he's very focused on that, and that's what he spends most of his time and energy on. He doesn't really care about anything else except for his science, and his comics are the two things that he enjoys a lot. He's also very socially awkward. He doesn't pick up on social cues that often, and he has trouble hearing sarcasm and understanding sarcasm. Sheldon Cooper's friends also have to deal with him, so we're going to talk about how they react to his symptoms. You know, they never actually say he has a mental disorder or anything. They just say, he's weird, he acts different, he's just not a normal person. But they always go along with what he wants. Like Sheldon, in one of the episodes, Leonard goes out of his way because one of the restaurants Sheldon likes closed. So Leonard, his roommate, buys a whole bunch of to-go boxes, and he orders food from a different restaurant and then puts them in the to-go box with the closed restaurant's name on it, just so Sheldon will be happy and just so he won't throw a hissy fit. I mean, when Sheldon finds this out, of course he gets very unhappy and he throws a hissy fit, but they go out of their way just to accommodate what Sheldon wants. That's it. The show as a whole, in my opinion, is very funny. It's a comedy, so it's supposed to be funny. I believe Sheldon's one of the best characters in there. He's one of the favorites I like to watch. It's still on, so the audiences aren't that mad about the symptoms Sheldon shows in the TV show, and they don't really find it that different. And he's always a part of the show too. He's a main character, and he does it well. Now I'm going to talk a little bit how Jim Parsons, the character or the person who plays Sheldon, kind of prepares for the role of Sheldon. According to the producers and the writers, Sheldon does not actually have Asperger's. He just has a lot of the symptoms. But to prepare for these symptoms, Mr. Parsons said it wasn't that hard for him because as a child growing up, he was very shy, which is kind of what Sheldon is in a way. The hardest part for Jim Parsons is just understanding the science part of the show, because Sheldon is a scientist, and it's actually very easy for him to get into the character who displays symptoms of Asperger's. So Jim Parsons actually does the character very well. He's won awards for it, and he it's not that hard for him to get into the character of Sheldon Cooper, and he plays it well, and I think he does a great job with it.
Can cause individuals to act differently from the so-called normal teen. Over the past several years, television has found a way to expose abnormal behaviors through different comedic relief. Autism is a brain disorder in which it causes an individual to develop an intellectual disability, difficulty in motor function, and physical health problems. Oftentimes, when people encounter a friend or stranger that is affected by autism, their initial reaction is to laugh or to make fun of the person that may be acting differently. But once an individual understands the circumstances that the person and their family are going through with the abnormal behaviors, the individual then copes with them and continues on with their day. The ABC Family hit comedy, The Middle, is about a suburban family that encounters many odd daily events and which stirs up their family in a comedic situation. The young son of the family, Brick Heck, is portrayed as a kid who has inherited a very mild case of autism disorder. Brick demonstrates signs of autism through his intellectual thought process and also different abnormal behaviors he associates himself with. Brick is a normal function kid in the eyes of an outsider. He goes to school, talks to his teachers, but Brick has a different way of looking at things than other kids do. One of Brick's main signs of autism comes while interacting with another person. He will repeat the last word of a sentence he just spoke in a whispering voice. While at home, Brick often is seen as sitting by himself in an open room talking to his backpack, which he considers his best friend, in a Scottish accent. People like Brick who demonstrate abnormal behaviors in television shows are what drive viewers to continue watching and seeing the next action that may happen. Because of Brick's weird behaviors, viewers don't see his action as a means of a disorder because of the environment in which his family is set in. Since the show is about the mishaps of a family life, viewers often miss Brick's behavior. The hidden
Autism is a mental disorder that affects both children and adults. Symptoms are usually noticed by parents or caregivers by the time they're 3 years old. Symptoms can range from having trouble learning to speak, lack of interest in making friends, staring at people, facial expressions, and being a typical one, or just being by themselves. Autism can change the way children think. In some cases, they focus more on specific parts of things, such as wheels on a car or the remote of a TV. They tend to like routines and rituals that are done in specific ways. When not done in these ways, they tend to become agitated and very flustered.
That's good, right? Yeah. I like that. Are you hungry? Yeah. Tuesday we have pancakes. Pancakes? Yeah, sounds good. If it's maple syrup, you bet your butt. Bet your butt. Uh-oh. Pancakes. Of course, what is this? Of course, I don't have my toothpicks. No, you don't need toothpicks. I was okay in the hotel last night with the pizza, but in a restaurant you have a fork. Of course, I don't have my toothpicks. You don't need toothpicks or anything. Pancakes keep slipping off you with a fork. I don't have my maple syrup. I'm looking without my maple syrup and my toothpicks. You don't see any pancakes to eat. Of course, I promise maple syrup is not here. We order the pancakes, they're going to bring the maple syrup. Maple syrup is supposed to be on the table before the pancakes. We haven't ordered yet, right? Of course, when they bring the maple syrup after the pancakes, it'll definitely be too late. How's that going to be too late? We haven't ordered the pancakes yet. How's that going to be? We're going to be here the entire morning with no maple syrup and no toothpicks. I'm definitely not going to have my pancakes with
The movie Rain Man depicts a man with autism, proving that even with a mental disorder, his mind is great and can do amazing things. His symptoms mostly relate to repetition, rituals, and fear of change, as shown in the last clip. In this movie, on several different occasions, he does amazing things like memorize a phone book and all its numbers, count cards without really trying, and being able to count large amounts of toothpicks when only dropped seconds before.
Another check. Sorry about the toothpicks. 82 what, man? How much is this? Toothpicks. It's a lot more than 82 toothpicks, right? What? 246 total to change. Fred, how many toothpicks are there? 250. Pretty close. Come on, let's go, Ray. 246.
There's 4 left in the box.
While autism can make life difficult through lack of friends and relationships due to social awkwardness, difficulty learning certain things in certain ways, it does not stop many people from achieving great things. Autism patients can develop extreme focus and talent when doing repetitive actions, such as musical instruments, math, and things along that nature. Many of history's greatest minds had forms of autism, such as